We are thrilled to co-sponsor this event with the Rowan Center for Global Affairs. Since the launch of the Center for Social Entrepreneurship in 2012, we have worked closely with our colleagues here in supporting many of the same students that bring their academic interests together with a passion for engaging and working with community to address social issues. In years past, several students have used their academic research sponsored by the Rowan Center to implement CSE and Projects for Peace grant opportunities. We are thrilled to see that overlap again this year. Our presenters worked and continue to work on projects in Middlebury and Washington, D.C., Pakistan, and Burundi. They will present their projects along with challenges and lessons learned, and we hope you have some questions ready for them during the second half of this event. Before I introduce our projects, we have a brief announcement that our fellowship application deadline has been extended to next Monday, October 27th. If you're interested in this opportunity, information is circulating, and I will be able to answer questions after these presentations. And now, please join me in welcoming the students that implemented Agora, Involving Women for Social Change in Chitral, Pakistan, Empowering with Code, and Twizik for Peace.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jake Eisenberg. I'm one of the co-founding members of Project Agora, along with Maddie Lee and Nathan Kowalski. So we just wanted to share a little today about our project over the summer, where we started and where we were thinking this project would take us, what we were working on over the summer, and where we think it will be headed over the next coming months. So with that said, we can go on to the next one. So I just want to take a really quick poll. I know the time is limited, but who here has been on projects on sites called Kickstarter or Indiegogo or any other crowdfunding site? So most of you. So how many of you have actually given to these sites? Wow, that's a lot. So one of the questions that we started off this project and thinking is that there are thousands, tens of thousands of projects available to fund. How do you know which project you want to fund? How do you find the project that is going to be meaningful to you and might have meaningful implications to the project area that you're funding to? So crowdfunding over the past few years has grown exponentially as a market, and this is mostly people giving just because they believe in a cause. And that's actually turned into something, go to the next slide. This. Someone raised $60,000, almost $50,000 to fund a potato salad. So this is a fundamental flaw in a huge growing market. $50,000 for someone's potato salad. It was $10 initially, that's what they were asking for. So how could we use a market that's growing so fast to actually be funding projects that can have implications, good social implications, for communities all around the country, and fund projects and ideas, people and organizations that we believe in, and they can have positive social benefits? So that was really the question that we were starting off with in trying to connect the physical spatial geographies with the emerging digital spatial geographies and connecting resources and information between them.
So some of our slides are a little out of whack. So I'm going to go back. I just want to motivate this a little bit further. So as we can see here, this is the graphical and numerical representation of growth of crowdfunding over the past 3 years. And it's very clear from this graphic that there is a huge wealth of capital out there in the crowd. And there are a lot of people willing to give a lot of money to certain projects. However, because there are so few asset classes open to non-accredited investors. But it's going towards things like this. Very frequently, this is $60,000 going towards a $10 project. And something like this is something that people see online and they think it'll be really funny if they give it some money. However, our idea is that all of this capital could be funneled into projects that can also create a positive social externality. There are so many public works projects and so many socially beneficial projects that could benefit from crowdfunding. So, our idea is that the current marketplace for crowdfunding, it exists there are a few major players, and so if you look on this left side, those 4 different pillars could represent a Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Crowdfunder, SparkFund, many different crowdfunding players. However, they all have their own kind of browsing interface, and they exist in disparate marketplaces. If you go on Kickstarter, you can browse through, swipe left, and click through the different projects that you might want to fund. However, there's no meaningful way to filter through the aggregate marketplace of crowdfunding and find a project that might have meaning to you. That in addition to getting this perk, in addition to getting a free pair of shoes, you might make a positive impact on your community. And so our idea is that you take these multiple disparate marketplaces and combine them into one interface that not only aggregates them, similar to kayak.com with airlines, but also allows you to filter through through projects for what kind of projects you want to invest in and what kind of return you want to get. You can filter through projects based on making some kind of social impact. You can filter through projects and look at only projects that are funding some kind of creative pursuit. And you can filter through based on whether you want a monetary return, some kind of perk, Kickstarter style, or just to make a charitable donation.
What initially motivated us to start this project was the idea of living we're in Middlebury, Vermont right now, and if we wanted to search for all of the possible projects that are existing in Middlebury or within a surrounding area where we would not only understand the context for the project, but also be able to meet the people who are creating the project, to know where the money is going, to know where the idea is leading to. That was what really initially motivated us to understand the community aspect of the sharing economy. Because as the sharing economy has grown, it's really leveraging on these already existing social connections and social networks that people have. But so much of it right now, as it grows, especially on crowdfunding websites, they become very theoretical and abstract because they're online. And it's a beautiful thing in that it's raised so much money, so many projects have been supported, and these new networks have emerged. But the idea of Agora is to bring back the local idea of crowdfunding, of contributing to community projects that you want to see progress. And so extending the sharing economy, in doing so we want to localize it more. And a way to do that is to put things physically on a map. And so this is a mock-up of what it would look like if you search for Middlebury, Vermont, or I'm from Rockville, Maryland. So if I wanted to search for like any projects near my home, I would put in the location, and then what is brought to the forefront of this new platform is all of the existing projects in that geographic range. And so this means that the economy, the network that I have, is not only exists online on places where I can search for it, but also like on the ground. And so here we're able to go and see where these different locations exist in place, in space, and go and support them, check them out, see how they're contributing and what context they're existing in.
So there are a number of different pieces that we were working on over the summer. This is obviously a large project that has many moving components and many changing components to it as this market develops. And so what we were really trying to focus on is an idea like this necessary in the market? Is there really a need for people, or a need or a want for people to understand what projects are out there, how they can get involved in local projects, and have the ability to connect with informal networks of friends, family, and local supporters that are also motivated. So one of our primary objectives over the summer was A/B analytics and testing, where we would basically fire up the idea online and see, this is our idea, are you interested? Would you put your email? Would you like to hear more about our project? And over the course of a week, we got 35 clicks. We got 2 people that just, without pictures or really any information, that just said, yes, I'm very interested. So that was just the basic principle of understanding, is there a need in the market? And we are fairly convinced just online that there is a need, that people would like to have something like this, where they can find projects that can have impactful impact on the community too. So we're also focused on local research, and Maddie is going to talk a little bit about, in a second, of what companies and groups that she talked to in the local Middlebury area that use crowdfunding as a model to finance their operations and their projects. We also created a number of software mock-ups to just envision what this application would look like and how it would be developed on an application on a phone or on a website. We also created a pitch deck so that we can start to approach companies like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and the large market holders to show them an idea of how this could be a benefit to them as well. We created a promotional video, and we also have a website, which we'd love you guys to check out. It's agoracommunity.org, and it's we have the video up there as well. And I think you want to talk a little more about that project.
This summer, these 2 were in Washington, D.C., but I stayed up here in Middlebury. And in understanding how Agora would be used and be beneficial to people who have projects and new initiatives that they're putting online that they're trying to get funding for. I went and talked to a few of the new businesses that have opened in town in Middlebury that opened as a result of crowd-funded campaigns. So there's a new coffee shop in town. There's a couple that just opened up a space for Middlebury chocolates again. And there have been really kind of a lot of changes downtown in the past year, I would say. And a lot of them have used crowdfunding to leverage support from the local area or from whoever and open up their space. And so in talking to them, actually a lot of the campaigns that didn't fully reach their goal. And they opened without having all the money that they needed. And they opened without having all the money that they needed, and talking to them about this process was really interesting because time after time, these business owners, they said that we really would have loved to have more support from the Middlebury community, or I came here from Burlington and I didn't know anyone in Middlebury, so it was really hard to leverage that support. And those were the kinds of things that we were hearing. Or we would hear, during the construction phase of, for example, the Middlebury chocolate shop, which is in town, the owner said that people would often see the work happening and go up to them and say, "Oh, we saw that you added this new feature to your shop, or you're doing construction, and we want to support. We can't wait till it opens." And that was the kind of thing that seemed so helpful and so such meaningful support for projects to continue and for project starters to use and to reflect on their idea and consult on how they could continue to do their work based on the local feedback they were getting. So the test that we had in town, the research that we did was more business oriented, but the same principles apply to local community initiatives or any group of people trying to start something within a community, wanting to have that support and that feedback straight from people who they would hope to find.
Great. So we know time is short, there are other presentations to get to, but we'd be happy to answer questions at the very end about moving forward and what we think we'd like to do over the next coming months for the project as well. So thank you all very much.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Naina Qayyum, and today I will talk about how I involved women for social change in my hometown, Chitral, in northern Pakistan. So the project was in Chitral, which is, if you can see on the map, it's a small town and rural area in the mountains bordering Afghanistan. So that's where I did the project, and the project was for 5 days. My project idea was inspired from human-centered design. It's a concept of idea which I learned about when I did mid-core in past summer. And I had 19 female participants from different parts of Chitral, although I was expecting 20, but due to some reasons, girls couldn't come. But we had a fairly good number, and we did a lot of hands-on group activities to foster creativity and to understand how women can be part of solution designing process within their communities if you give them the tools and the mentality to be creative about their ideas. So this is what, so the 19 girls were divided into groups of four groups, and each girl had to come up with her own design challenge, which she thought was very important for her community. And each group then voted for one design challenge which they would like to work on or design a prototype for. These are the prototypes that the girls designed at the end of the 5 days workshops. And so this one on the top, it's a prototype to show the setup of an organization called SCAN, which is Stopping Child Abuse Now. And they were trying to see how can they initiate a small organization which can promote the idea of how to stop child abuse in the community. The second one is a skill center, which this one participant was trying for the past 5 years to set up in her village. But she was unable to really know how to start, how she could do it. So she worked with her group to come up with a prototype in which she was able to show the kinds of products that the Skills Center would make. They even made a small solar power panel to show that it would be, the energy would come from solar energy. They did a setup of how it would look like when you enter the Skills Center and how there would be a private room for the girls who are working on different products. Another group worked on, they call themselves the Peace Planters, and they made a counseling center. They designed a counseling center for students who are faced with financial problems, because financial issues is a really big problem for a lot of students in Chitral, and the incidence of suicide attempts is really high among students, especially girls. And then this project, the one on the bottom left, is it's about a group that wanted to promote the idea of recycling and how might they create habits in a population, in a community, to reduce pollution in their area. So the whole project, when I show you the prototype, it's like, wow, you're just bringing together girls and doing this thing. But considering the context, the cultural context of Chitral, it's not an easy thing because women mobility is not that easy. I did this project in a hotel in Chitral town, and just to have 19 girls come and live in a hotel in Chitral town is something which has never been done before. And all these girls are between the age of 19 and 24 years. And for their parents to send them, it's a very big step because a lot of these girls have never lived like this before. So it was a big challenge for me, and I was also nervous in the beginning because what if something happens and then my reputation is at stake? And the organization which helped me to identify the participants, the Alpine Rural Support Program, it was also their reputation would be at stake as well because in a community where people get suspicious of why there are all these girls, living in this hotel all by themselves. So that was a big challenge for me. But these girls they were really cooperative. They were very curious, and for them just to know that because I told them how you can think of an idea, how you can be creative about it, what kind of thinking processes you can go through, how do you approach people in the community to share your ideas with them. How do you make a questionnaire? How do you interact with people? How do you involve the community? How do you work in your team? All these skills, they might look like very basic, but when a lot of organizations talk about involving communities in designing solutions, the how part is really not worked upon, and that's what I felt was really lacking in Chitral itself. And I wanted to work on that how part, and I wanted to work with these girls. Why I didn't include boys in this project was because I don't have anything against guys, but the thing was, these girls wouldn't have been as open, as comfortable in doing what they did if there were male participants in the workshop as well, so I had to be mindful of that. Although if I do something similar in the future, I would like to, have women collaborate with men as well and see that dynamic in play as well. And then after, at the end of our project, the girls presented their ideas to local organizations in Chitral. And the representatives, when they came, they were very surprised to see that, because they didn't know what exactly we were doing, but when they came in, they saw the presentations and they saw the girls pitching their ideas to them. They were very impressed, and for them, this was something very new, that students from, a village can actually show them a solution to a problem which they were probably working on for a long time. So it definitely helped me understand the power of fostering creativity in a community and why it's important to empower the community to appreciate the creative power that humans beings have to come up with solutions that may be very basic but can be very simple, and we don't need $1,000 donations from other big organizations to come and do them, and a community itself can be active and do that. And that's why I personally would love to have the youth in Chitral to be very active in this endeavor. And thank you so much for listening, and I'd like to thank the Military Center for Entrepreneurship for the grant, IDEO for letting me use their human-centered design work and be supporting me in the process of making the curriculum, and the Alpine Rural Support Program for recruiting the girls and for sending my word out there to get the participants. And thank you to you for listening.
Empower with Code is a mentorship program where we pair Middlebury College students with local middle school and high school students with the goal of teaching these youth how to code. The program takes place every Tuesday at the Patricia A. Hannaford Career Center nearby the Middlebury Union High School. As mentors, Joel Chen, Andrew Huang, and I hope that we can leverage our knowledge to create a stimulating learning atmosphere outside of the classroom. Our ultimate goal is to encourage the students to become interested in the sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics, while giving them the tools they need to succeed. But you may be wondering, what exactly are these tools that we are giving them? Well, there are two. The most obvious one is programming skills, but more specifically, we teach them how to take large, complicated problems and how to break them down into smaller, more manageable pieces so that they can then solve. Students learn how to do this by following and completing JavaScript tutorial videos and exercises on codeschool.com. Whenever the students experience any difficulties, they can always raise their hand to get our attention and ask for help. Oftentimes, if we see that they are struggling, we can even step in sooner. As mentors, we then try to identify the problem and explain to them the concept that they do not understand or how they should be approaching the particular problem posed in the exercise. In this way, we add a more personalized touch to their learning experience while creating a more informal atmosphere where the students can be engaged while they are having fun. In addition, students can learn at their own pace, so they don't have to be afraid of feeling that they're far behind their peers, as might be the case in a classroom setting. Now, unlike the intangible nature of the first tool, the second tool the students will receive is much more tangible. This tool comes in the form of a laptop, something the students will obtain after they've attended 10 sessions. At that point in time, the students will not only have the programming skills, but also the hardware that they need in order to continue their learning experience. They are, of course, still encouraged to continue to participate with Empower with Code, but their education is not limited to now once per week, as they now have the means to explore whatever their interests are whenever they have the time. So far, Empower with Code has seen incredible growth. For the past 2 sessions, there have been about 20 students attending, a threefold increase compared to the number of students we had last semester when we first started this project. We have seen strong interest from students and equally strong interest from and encouragement from their parents as well. Many of these students have never coded before, but and though the learning process may at times be difficult for them, it is also rewarding, as we have clearly seen their enthusiasm and their smiles. Moving forward, we hope to bring professional programmers to one of our sessions so that the students can get a chance to listen to the amazing stuff that they could potentially do with the skills that they learn at Empower with Code and ask any questions that they might have. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Carmel, and I'm a junior here at Middlebury College. And I'm here to talk about my summer Davis project for peace. It's called Twisted for Peace. I am from Burundi. How many of y'all know where Burundi is? Not that many. Burundi is, as you can see, a really big country. It's in East Africa. It's in the south of Rwanda. Country that we share a lot of history with, and we share a lot of culture and societies that are similar. So I was born in Burundi at times of war, at times of genocide. Although it might sound that my early childhood was very challenged by the war and everything that was going on, I still had a great childhood. I played with everyone. I went to school. Although there would be gunshots at life was okay to me because that's what I knew. That's what I thought was standard. At age 17, I went to Swaziland for UWC, which is schools that bring together kids from all over the world, and together they use education as a tool for peace. And I was struck by how people live together. You know, how kids from Fiji and a kid from, I don't know, Australia or like a Palestinian and Israel like just live together. And so that struck me a lot because I was like, okay, I'm from Burundi. We only have 2 ethnicities, and we struggle. Well, we have 3, but 2 main ethnicities, and we struggle that much. So I remember in 2012, I went back home after I got here. There was like, it was in mid-April, and I was at home, I was watching TV, my mom was reading a book, and my little brother, who was 7 years younger than me, he was doing homework, just like next to where I was sitting. And I was watching TV, and I was watching the news, and as typical Burundi, they would talk about how many people died, like what diseases are going somewhere, and it really got me thinking, like, where is my country heading? Like, okay, fine, we're in war, but like I've seen better. I know this can continue, and so I started having this like sort of, it's not denial, but this quest for better because I knew my country could do better, and I saw that I can't just sit around and wait for someone from somewhere to come do it. So my freshman year here, I was sitting in my dorm, and I was like, okay, Armel, get it together. It's university. We have to do something. So I'm very passionate about youth and youth empowerment and young people, and I work better with young people, and I'm a very energetic person. So I decided to create something called CSE for Peace. So CSE means everyone in Burundi, which is the biggest language of Burundi. So which is a camp to bring together young people aged between 17 and 23. When I started, I was thinking that we started in my city, Bujumbura, capital city, and then bring them together and then learn about entrepreneurship and conflict management. The reason being that you can't have sustainable peace if you don't have sustainable economy. And sustainable economy won't happen if you don't have sustainable peace. So I made a commitment to CGIU, which is the Clinton Global Initiative. So my commitment to action was to create a summer camp in Bujumbura, which we ran for a week, that taught entrepreneurship and conflict management. And I got a grant, a summer grant, like this, like everyone. And it really helped me start my project. And after that summer, that was the summer 2013, I was blown away. I was like, you know, I felt empowered, and I felt great that I was doing the little that I could. And like reading from the thoughts and the smiles and the reflections and the thoughts that the participants had, it really kept me going. And I was like, okay, this has to keep on going. But then, how are we going to do it? So that's where this daily project for peace came up about. So this summer, my project was about scaling up what I started the year before. Going from just starting in Bujumbura to recruiting students from all over the country, and then going from a mere 20 students to 35 students. Although, I mean, if you attend the country, you can't recruit everyone. And so my idea was to start with a small number of people who sort of like create a cascade effect and train others. So how we did that, we recruited students from all over the country. My biggest worry was that, so we use a Google Drive application where once the students like their number, like their age, like basic information. But furthermore, like what kind of things are they involved in school, and what's their passion, what they want for the country, how they envision in the future. So to get an idea of like what kind of personalities they have, and see what kind of impacts they could have on the community. So the first year it worked well because we were like working in the city, and there's like internet and everything. But then the second year we were like extending to everyone, and in Burundi, internet is much basic, just the city. So that was my intro challenge. But then we used how many of you know what WhatsApp is? Yeah, it's a great texting app that's very successful in Burundi. It's surreal. Everyone has WhatsApp. I don't understand why. I went back this summer and I was like, okay, everyone has WhatsApp now. When I was still there, no one had it. So we used, so people shared the app, like the info about the applications to WhatsApp, on Vibe, which is very similar, on Facebook and Twitter. Like, social media was huge. And young people use a lot of social media in Burundi, which was like, very fascinating to me. I would never think that way. So we ended up getting a lot of applications from all over the country. So we got 168 applications from 15 provinces among the 17 of the whole country, which is a lot. I was pleasantly surprised. And the applications were like mind-blowing. I just felt so bad saying no, because I don't like to say no. But it was very encouraging, and it really made me think of like, because as much as we want to be selective, we want this training to be available to everyone. So we ended up choosing 35 participants, which is like a 20% acceptance rate. Not bad, but it's pretty selective. From 10 provinces, from all over the country, and then so we started. So it was held in Bujumbura. So the first year it was like a boarding. I mean, it was like a day camp. So they would come in, they would go back home. But this year, part of our innovation was to have like a camp where they would stay in and then study there, sort of to create those bonds, and then like, get to know each other. So what we teach them entrepreneurship and conflict management. So one of the other innovations we did this year in the training was using the build model. So the build model is from the African Leadership Academy, which is a school based in South Africa, and they're doing an incredible job in empowering African leaders to be the future leaders of Africa. So build stands for believe, understand, invent, listen, and deliver. So the core of this training is letting everyone believe that there is an entrepreneur in themselves. There is possibility they have it in themselves. It's a matter of us helping them to like resurface that. Another thing is like making them so they have to understand the community where they live in, because an entrepreneur is someone who's part of a community, and your project or business or like your social innovation it's sort of an answer to a problem in the community. Then, so we taught them how to invent, like how to prototype, how you validate the ideas, how do you know, how do you make it work, how do you, then how to listen to everyone else, how do you go to the community, talk to people, see if your idea is valid, how, if you can like make it better. And then the last part was deliver, which is sort of to pitch the idea. So we had like a pitching competition at the end, and the projects were just, that was mind-blowing. I mean, it's really interesting to see how far you can go in just 12 days, and how creative they can. I mean, they came with these projects that I was like, I would have never thought of that. Like the girl who won, for instance. So my city is expanding really quick, and then my city is like flat, but then the Rift Valley just like rises up like from nowhere. So in these like high areas, it's really hard for them to get water because the water comes from the lake, Lake Tanganyika. So she thought of a new innovative way to do like water supply, using like home delivery of like these huge tanks of water. Because like, people do it, but it's not that lucrative, it's not well organized. It's sort of like a different way of doing it. And like this other girl designed something called frigo du désert, which would mean fridge from the desert, I guess, in French. And it's sort of this concept of using, some people call the batois in Burundi make these like pots using like from pottery, and then so using that to like, like a fridge to store food in areas that don't have electricity in Burundi. And it was actually really interesting because they sort of connected to the core of problems that they're facing right now, stuff like lack of water in some places or lack of electricity, and there's like a lot of power cuts right now in the city. So I thought like that was interesting. And there were many more other projects that were very reassuring that we actually taught them something that they delivered. And it's sort of a way for us to know that our model works and that it's not just going to stop there. Like for instance, in the understand part, we put them to understand the community. Second example, this is like the city center in Bujumbura. So these are Parfait, and this is Héritier, and this is like the bus stop. So they were like asking people that need to know like what the problems they have in the community, or like going to talk to everyone. Because we told them that your community is your inspiration. That's where you're gonna get. Excuse me. That's where you're gonna get the ideas or your core entrepreneur idea. And then instead of seeing problems, instead of thinking that, oh my God, it's like really huge, you can't solve it, then that's your mindset as an entrepreneur. You're gonna think that's gonna be an opportunity for you to create social change and along the way make money if you want. Another big part was conflict resolution. As I said before, Rwanda and Burundi are very similar, and throughout history we faced like wars and genocide, which are based on conflicts. So one of the main reasons why we did this camp was to bring together like Tutsis and Hutus, but not just that, also bring together people from like different social classes, people from like different areas, because although Burundi might not be that big, it's very diverse. If you get to travel through, you see so many different things, and there's a need for people to just come together and like young people to talk among each other, because those kind of social barriers really limit the kind of interactions people have with each other. So our approach to conflict resolution, I had Jean-Claude, he's a graduate from a school in Virginia who has masters in conflict resolutions. He volunteered to lead the workshops about conflict resolutions, and we taught them. We went back. I learned a lot. So we went back and talked about the history of conflicts in Burundi, because in education, in high school education in Burundi, you learn about, kingdoms and colonization, but you never learn like why are we fighting now? Why do people go on the radio and just talk bad about each other? So people talk about where this whole idea of Tutsi and Hutu came from and how it materializes into something that will lead people to take machetes and kill each other. And then they also talked about the sociological background of it and anthropological. And then people had really great conversations, because it's very rare that people just confess that they were Hutu or Tutsi without a political meaning to it. Being just I'm here, this is who I am, but it doesn't matter. I'm Burundian and I'm proud of that. And that's what we wanted to create. And the kids will have really intense conversations about it and talk about what that means and why we want that to mean in the future. Because in the next 20 years, in the next 5, 10 years, these will be the people who will be leading the country. And if you want to invest in a new country, if you want to invest in a new Burundi, that's how you invest in them. That's how you make them think, realize, make them think deeper about what they know as the status quo and what they know about ethnicities. So we had a lot of introspection, think about how far they've got, and they had journals for them to keep up with the idea of how far they've got and the kind of impact that has done to them. We also had this thing that I learned from before that I took last year, sort of these envelopes to complement each other. So in Burundian society, people don't compliment each other that much. There has to be a reason to it. But and I was scared because I was oh my God, this is an American thing. Burundians don't do this. Is it gonna work? But at the end, it worked so well that I still have I had mine too. So right now, when I'm feeling a little bit sad, I go to it and I realize that, this was just a great experience. It was very powerful for them just to get to come to each other. And that's what we wanted, create camaraderie, create people who go beyond just mere ethnical differences, social, cultural differences, to just like come together and claim their uniqueness, or such a thing. So love to put our word out, we work heavily on social media. Hashtag Quest for Peace 2014 was our hashtag on Facebook, on Twitter, and we got a lot of, it helped us like attract so many people and get our word out. We got retweeted by the CSE, which is the Clinton Global Initiative, which we're proud of, and then we got people talking. I remember this time I was walking in the city, just taking the bus, and they said, "Oh, you're the guy from the Facebook and the Twitter," and I'm like, "Oh my god, I hate being on the spot like that." Which was great, because got people talking, and I can encourage people to know that it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. If you really have an idea in the heart, really go for it. So we had a lot of activities, sort of create that camaraderie and get people talking, and then getting people to like realize that they're the same. We had like a fashion show out of like journals. We had the marshmallow challenge, which was very interesting, and they were all like trying to know what marshmallow means. And then we had like games, and yeah, my city is really beautiful. So as they said, so Twist for Games means, yeah, this is really interesting. It really got to their hearts, and even now they still talk about it. It's really interesting. So I would like to thank the CSE for this project and this project for peace, because I really feel passionate and also grateful to go to a school that cares this much, that really wants to like invest in your person, in all the kind of things you want to do. And I don't think my delivery experience would have been the same without the CSE. So thank you so much.
So if we have about 10 minutes, if you all have questions, I think we'll go with students first. And if all of the grant recipients can go stand in the front of the mic.
Does anyone have questions? Or suggestions?
I have a question for Agora. So I know initially the reason why you wanted to start Agora is because you saw crowdfunding going towards projects that weren't necessarily productive, like potato salad. The funding that goes towards this potato salad, does it go for the individual after it's been funded? So do they just get $50,000? And also, how do you intend to solve this problem? Because you want to remedy it by letting people choose other social projects to fund, but if they want to specifically solve this potato salad.
Yeah, totally. So actually, can you guys hear me if I speak like this? Cool. I don't like it. So, two questions. One, what do they have to do with that $50,000, right? Do they get to keep that? And two, how do we intend to solve the potato salad problem, right? Cool. So the way Kickstarter works is you can kind of put anything up on Kickstarter, and all the money that goes to your project after Kickstarter takes a 10% cut, you have to use for whatever you describe, whatever's in the description of your project. So the person who put up the potato salad has to use $15,000 to make potato salad. He can't just keep like $48,000 and then make like a still obscene quantity of potato salad. Yeah.
So the one thing about the potato salad, which is kind of a ridiculous case, that happens a lot on Kickstarter. You have these ridiculous projects that get funded for that. But in the case of the potato salad, he actually created a potato salad convention and party, which was actually locally based, and he actually had 1,000 people there all eating potato salad. So even in that case, what we're just trying to show is that there are localized potentials for these Kickstarter opportunities. And in that case, this was just a kind of a trending project. But what we want to allow people to do is to see around you, in your vicinity, in 2 miles, 3 miles, in your city, what projects could you be funding that might have the impact around you? And if you want to fund a potato salad, that's your money, that you can do that. But at least you'll have the choice to do that. So it's really trying to allow and trying to drop the barriers for financing that was really built over the past 100 years with banks giving loans and microloans, and now allowing people to fund projects that are meaningful to them and they see benefit to them too. So we might not be able to stop people from funding large amounts of potato salad, but we want to give them opportunities to fund other things as well.
And other projects are easily accessible beyond just projects that are hyped up like the potato salad. The reason it got $50,000 is because people just posted, a bunch of different news sites just posted articles about this potato salad project. So a bunch of kids our age were like, that's hilarious. I'm going to give $2 to this guy who's making potato salad. But this is just kind of leveling the playing field, putting those projects that don't have that same kind of visibility in one visible marketplace. Yeah.
Also, a couple of questions. I'll start with you with the Agora people. The map that you showed, is there how do the locations of the projects that are funded, how do they make it to the, is there some kind of a general database of all the projects that are being funded, and then they appear, or do you actually have to create the map?
The nice thing about most of these sites is that they have some sort of geotag on them already. But because they're split out over 6, 7 different communities, there's tens of different sites now, you can't see all those in one place. So you can have 2 projects that are very close to each other that might have the same value, but you can't see them on different sites.
So is that something that you guys are interested in,
So it's called
a
scraping.
clearinghouse for all these projects?
Yeah, that kind of goes into the kind of technical piece of it, which is called scraping, where you take the data on the website, obviously with the permission of the website to do that, so that they can have their project with other data points too. So you can be seeing the points that you're seeing on that visual, which is a mock-up, just understanding that those points are points listed on the websites too. And encouraging those sites to be telling their projects, listen, you guys should list your projects, you might be able to get local funders if you can list exactly where your name is.
So people don't input to Agora their own project, but the map, for example, would be an output from Agora that takes all of the data that people can put on other crowdfunding websites and is able to keep track of.
Yeah. So the current state of that data is that a lot of sites like Kickstarter list the towns that the project is located in. However, the ultimate goal of Agora is to have the most granular data possible and have being able to actually physically geolocate each one of these projects. And this is maybe not feasible for some of them, depending on the data they provide. And 2, to have a web crawler that just automatically, like Jake was saying, crawls the web, crawls these crowdfunding sites, and scrapes data from a predefined list of sites. And so that ideally it would be something that's automatically updating. And then in addition, we could have some kind of manual injection where if you're on a smaller crowdfunded site that you're not scraping from, you can just add to that marketplace.
Can I ask, I want to ask now for the last 3. So your projects were say like 1 summer or 2 summers or 1.5 years or whatever, and I'm interested in sort of the long-term impact of your projects and what kind of assurances. So in the case of the students working in Hanford, there is a supply of students who might be interested in it. I think I can see, but 9 or Mel, how do you ensure that it was not a one-time thing, and in your case, or two times thing? I want to know about the impact sort of into the future of your project.
Sure. So while our working model is like have a cascade influence. So our students, instead of training the trainer, so from last year, we had so the participants participated the first summer. They went on and agreed 2 main high school labs, one in the university, one in the high school. And they have that also get members from their schools, and that's why the applications get even more. So these ones, right now we're in the process of creating 2 more. We're trying to go slowly, but.
And that's something you need funding for?
So far.
On Kickstarter.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. But so we try to not need money and try to use the most basic things, because all you need is a pass and a piece of chalk and probably get talking, and then usually schools have that, and looks like supply that. But then we're also thinking of ways, it's like one of the concerns that one of the participants raised this year. She was like, okay, this is great, but it's also a certain kind of people. It's like people who want to school, who are in colleges, but then what about those people who didn't graduate? What about those people who like are somewhere who don't even have access to like phone to actually know what about it? And then I was like, wow, that's really great. So we're thinking of ways, I guess, to bridge that gap. We haven't found yet how to do that. But then I think we're learning from our experiences and learning from our mistakes and taking slow steps that hopefully will take us on. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your question, and that's definitely something which I wish personally I could have stayed and worked on, implementing the projects in different parts of Detroit, but I have to come back to finish college. And also, what I did this summer was a pilot project, but definitely what I heard from the girls, their feedback was that they learned something from this, and some of them, they have, they're part of youth groups in their villages, so they said that they can go back and share this idea with them, possibly like think of other challenges which they can solve through these tools that I shared with them. So in terms of long-term impact, I think even if giving that mentality of how to be creative, how to look at a problem in a very different way, I think has a very long-term impact in itself on an individual level. And if that individual goes and sort of extrapolates that learning to the community, can have, I think, a much further impact on a long-term level. So the thing is, right now, the skill center, the girl that was doing that, she's going to start it, but where she lives, there are no phone connections there, and she doesn't have any email, so I really cannot contact her. But I've asked the local organization that recruited her for the program to sort of update me about how things go. And the SCAN, the child abuse group, that started to piggyback on some local projects to sort of go and talk to people about child abuse and get a sense of what it is in the community. So they are trying their best because the resources are limited. It's not an easy thing. I can't use the internet to spread the word. So definitely there are a lot of challenges, but for me, the long-term impact I see right now from this summer is just the fact that I instill this thing of another way of involving yourself in the community. So that for me is long-term.
So I have a question for one of the groups that, I think it's the two ones that were domestic, that involve several Middlebury students, so the STEM one or the crowdsourcing one. How did you all get together to create this idea? How did that happen? Where did that happen? Why did that happen? So either group, I'm interested in the ones that came from sort of a synergy, I'm imagining, of 3 people or whatever. How did that happen?
So you're wanting the initial, how did we start to talk about it?
Yeah, how did this even come to be an idea and then come to fruition? Because I think your group and the STEM group both involve a few students working together, as opposed to, I think the international ones was one student having a vision and moving with it. So I'm curious about the collaboration, how that worked.
Yeah, sure. I took on this project from a student named James Sun. Last year, he founded this organization, but because he left Middlebury College and I took this on, and what happened was that we just talked to other people who were interested in also sharing and helping the Middlebury community, and also who really wanted to promote the STEM subject, especially considering how President Obama has addressed this issue in several of his speeches, that this is an issue that not just in Middlebury, but also all across America. That's something that we need to push for. And so I just found some other people who were really interested in promoting this. And then since this is a program that is also quite, because they already have this background, it's already very easy for them to be able to help other students. And it's also not as much of a time commitment for them. So, and we structured it that way so that also the participants can also feel like they're not being overwhelmed with all this knowledge, and that they can take time to actually learn and internalize all the concepts that they learn. So
I guess from our end, we knew each other prior to Agora, and we each have kind of different geographic backgrounds in studying geography. And all of us are very interested in how we could actually create something that creates impact through our knowledge of geography, and really playing to our strengths of finance to social impacts to environment, and really trying to find a project that could do that. So we kind of started with a conversation talking about crowdfunding and platforms and startups and development. And from there, we kind of just, it was an idea that started to grow. And over the summer, Nathan and I were working on a startup in DC. Maddie was working up here for the summer. So we were able to kind of coordinate our ideas through just based online using just coordination, phone calls, and messaging. And also able to use the resources that we had for our other internships as well. And so we were actually able to work with other organizations at Spark Fund in DC that was able to advise us on how we might go about to approach this startup in a way that could be strategic for long-term development.
There's also just like a lot of time spent in Proctor dining hall together, talking through things that really excited us.
They're all great conversations happening. Yeah. Well,
We like maps.
I just like maps.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I think we are going to cut this short now, and our grant recipients will be here for a couple of minutes if you have any further questions.